Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Let's see who's here. Good morning, John. Good morning, Sterling. Sterling with the news in here. Good morning, Patrick. Let's see. Let's see. So yes, Swissies kept their interest rate policy unchanged. We'll go over what's really important this week. So, lots of great information here from Sterling. Patrick, yeah, the rotation zone, it can keep you on the right side, especially the larger rotation zones. And I did talk about that. I might talk about that a little more. I'm doing a Ninja Trader webinar, I think on Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday morning. So, I might talk more about that also on Ninja Trader. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Options 22. What else we have? Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, Christoph. Happy Monday to you also. I need to learn to make trade with the trend my first rule. That you can get pullbacks, but that's why I talked also about the rotation zone. The rotation zone. Again, that's why. Okay, as long as I'm going with especially the daily rotation zone and then still the weekly rotation zone on a much larger time frame, it prevents me of getting into stupid. That's why I also say, like, if you have the double tops against the rotation zones, I'm not talking a 5 minute rotation zone, I'm talking, like the daily rotation zone, the probabilities drop, especially if the targets are beyond the rotation zone. The rotation zone can keep you on the right side of the trend, and the trend can keep going. And you don't have to call the top. Okay? You can notice things like we could be getting to a major shift coming up. So, with stuff I watch and with wave analysis and with some DeMark stuff, we're getting to exhaustion areas. We have the Fed meeting this week, but, we have to then do some there's going to be sells, and the sells are going to take us back below the rotation zone. Eventually, the rotation zones are going to cross, and then it's more to sell the rallies and stop buying the dips aggressively and waiting for key bottoming patterns at key locations. Where did I leave this? Good morning, Royal Palms. Yeah, I was the Alphabet and Apple's a little higher, but the market's getting desperate for stuff for reasons to buy. That I'm not buying that Apple's going to buy a licensed Gemini from Google. Do you think they're going to pause, and do you think they'll be good for the market in the short? Well, they're not going to hike. We'll get into that in a second. So first off, nothing much today. We have the housing market index and 3 and 6 months bill auctions. I have Japan up here. Why do I have Japan up here? 10 p.m. Central this evening is their interest rate decision, which will affect the yen, and this could be their first hike in like 17 years, I think. 17 years, if I'm correct. I might be incorrect. It's been a very long time. But forecast to hike. So, and that can also change global liquidity because it can start unwinding some of the carry trade. So this can have an effect on the markets on a global perspective. Okay, I just wanted to put that up there so people don't forget that is a big event. So watch that going into tomorrow. Tomorrow, in terms of what we have going on here in the U.S., we got Red Book, we got housing starts and building permits, and some of the longer 20-year bond auction. But not much. I mean, tomorrow, it's very light today and tomorrow in terms of news going into the Fed meeting. They're expected to pause, but the real big thing will be the press conference, and they release the dot plots, which are released 4 times a year. So we're going to have to compare the dot plots in March to the dot plots back in December to see if they've changed stuff with the projections of how many cuts, especially this year. So that's going to be important. So when the interest rate decision and the dot plots come out, we can see some increased volatility. So Wednesday is the real big day. Thursday, we got unemployment and the S&P manufacturing composites and services. We got then, remember, the Fed's been in quiet period, and we got Barr speaking. Oh, Powell speaks Wednesday afternoon, but then you got Barr speaking, and then you got Barr and Bostic on Friday. Friday's another very quiet day. So this is, besides the Bank of Japan meeting tonight and the Fed on Wednesday, it's a pretty much a quiet week, but those two events can have major impacts on the markets. So we got the tech rally. I mean, but it's literally, besides Microsoft, it's by tech. Even Tesla bouncing after hitting the second target finally last week. Not surprised Tesla's going to be into a bounce, but again, rotation zone's down on Tesla, so any bounces, especially into key resistance, I'd be watching for, short setups, or at least I would not be aggressively trying to hold any long positions above those levels. So you see the bounce. Also, there'll be some repositioning because, especially with the longer term plays being put on, with the longer term option plays, especially the SPX today, and longer term hedges being reestablished because we had quad witching on Friday. So I'm also not surprised to see some bouncing today. So we have comm services, technology, consumer cyclical. So it's definitely a risk on type of day, to quote CNBC. Fed Watch. Let's just refresh this once more. Fed Watch should have still going into Wednesday. Doubt this is going to change. A pause is baked in for March. A pause is still pretty much baked in for May. It's getting closer to 50-50 for June, so I'd really be watching these June numbers to see how they potentially shift. All right, but we still have 1, 2, 3 cuts priced in, which is what Powell, so it's decreased from that 5 to 4 down just to 3. Still in upper end of greed mode. In terms of earnings, this is just, we're at the tail end. The really only thing I'm watching, we got Micron after the close on Wednesday. KB Home, I'll peek at. Nike, Lululemon, and FedEx, especially FedEx on Thursday. So the big day for me is Thursday after the close, and then nothing on Friday. The big day is Thursday of what I'm paying attention to earnings for. We'll look at Tesla options 22. Good morning, Heinrich. Good morning, Charles. Do you think they're going to... we already answered that question. Yeah, thank you. Last time Japan hiked rates was 2007, so 17 years. Can you explain to everyone what the yen carry trade is and how it hikes and Japan could unwind? Well, you can remember there's been negative rates in Japan. It's just going to neutral now. So, but once they start, if this is a major shift, they start going positive in the next few months. So you're borrowing yen, you're investing. So you're borrowing yen, especially for free or better, and you can invest it in other countries. Okay? You can go invest it. But you start hiking to neutral, and then you start, you get above neutral, and it's like you can't borrow for free. That changes the game. That starts changing the game. So keep that in mind. That's why I'm saying if this is the start of the Bank of Japan changing their monetary policy, remember, they've had negative rates. Okay? So that can be a big shift over if it's going to continue. If it's not just a one and done to take it back to neutral. Also, if it goes to neutral, you're just going to have to somewhat pay something for borrowing. It might be minuscule, but it does affect things. And it also is going to affect the longer term putting on new carry trades and unwinding things, especially that you'd have to reestablish. All right, going into the S&P. I also have the back adjust off, but if you see, we finally had last week, the, what is that? The third and this was only slightly down 0.19% last week. So again, only the third week since the end of October it's been down. But we're seeing, it's starting to get a little more waning momentum. We're also getting to some very key and potential. I have to say potential. So it came back down in the rotation zone, bouncing today. Look how many times we've held the rotation zone. Look at this. This is why people buy the dip, because it's trading with the trend. Now, the problem is when you start buying the dip and the trend changes. Okay? We still have a potential double top. It could be invalidated on a continued rally today. And it would be against the rotation zone. So, keep that in mind. We're getting cycles potentially to the bottom on the daily, but the weekly cycles are still at the top, and it's still very overbought. Now, with the weekly, it's also against the rotation zone. So could we get a breakdown that takes us back to the weekly rotation zone? Then I'll be watching. If we do, especially this week, maybe after the Fed decision, something starts unwinding, then I'll be watching for the bounce up there. The second dip into the weekly rotation zone, I really start watching for the bigger pullback. We're not even there. The NASDAQ, barely triggering this. I gotta fix this. Barely. Hold on. No, this was not the. I have to unwind that. On the non-back adjusted charts, that was not there. Sorry about that. On the back adjusted charts, but we've gotten to non-back adjusted. Don't even bother with that double right now. Really watch this channel. Really watch this channel. So NASDAQ, really pay attention. If it gets between 18,350 and about 18,435, that's the key area I'm now watching with the declining channel for a potential rollover play. It technically went into neutral mode, but we still have broken some key support. Here's your key support you see right here. Here's your key support. Remember, key closing basis is more important. And this is a level of significance. You had a close here back on Friday the 9th. You had a February, a close here on the 22nd. Okay, a close here on the 6th of March. Dipping into that and bouncing back up today. So really watch this 18,000 area, 18,040, but really I just go to 18,000. If you get a close, a rollover, and then a close below there, watch for a shift in the NASDAQ. That's what I'm watching on today. But back to the S&P real quick. S&P could be, I'm paying attention to the closing basis of 52.1975. If we break below that, I'm watching about 5,200 to 5,207 as support. Continuing levels up, I'm still looking at 52.32. Then 52.44, 52.45. 52.45 is a very key topping area. The NASDAQ, I'm watching on a continued rally into the open, 15.349. And then besides using some shorter term levels, my next major level is at 18.434.50 on a closing basis. But in here, there's a minor level about 18,385 to pay attention to. The Dow is just lagging right here into the rotation zone. But the key area, if you're watching the Dow, let me just reverse this real quick. The key area for watching the Dow today is about 39,295 to 39,3, then 39,375 is a very major key level on the upside. The Russell, the key area to watch on a closing basis from my perspective is this 2055. You see the Russell with the separation of the rotation zone. Again, Thursday pulling back, Friday very neutral day, and then moving up today, also Friday. If you're watching, the percent B was 0. I prefer negative. So that did not hit negative. If you're using the uh, open, the high low close divided by 3 low. So this, I would not be looking for a strong aggressive move up in the Russell. But if you're looking at the reverse harmonics from the top back at Friday the 8th, your key area is 2080, roughly 2081 to then 2091 is the key area to watch for a rollover play. The VIX, little gap up, but reversing today. We can see elevated, remember the elevated VIX, even with, because people might go, well, the market's rallying hard. Why is the VIX still up and reversing a little from Friday? Because we're headed into the FOMC on Wednesday. So that's naturally going to put upwards pressure on implied volatility. But if we start breaking below this 1450 area, I'm going to be watching back to about 1440. Would be shocked if it started dropping much below 1440. The DAX is, and remember, the DAX rolled. The DAX rolled the contract. The key support is sitting at 18.2. The key resistance is still about 18.350. Notes, then I'll look at comments in a second. Notes, we're back to the roll gap. And back here, nothing changed. It's also the bigger channel, still watching to reconnect with that first target at base stat, that 109.20 area. And then on a breakdown, 109.01. Easier to see with the yield, which never got invalidated. Still, on the little thing, on the little retracement, we closed above the 62.5 last Thursday, hit the 87.5 Friday, trying to get through there. The next key area is back to this 4.35, and then the next target above that is 4.395 to reconnect, which would finally take us to the first target of the double, which has been triggered back Wednesday the 14th. I might not have time today. Remind me this week, though. Good morning, Martinez. So, let's see. 10-2s, not much to talk about. I'm going to be paying very close attention to this after the Fed meeting. Dollar index. This, between the Bank of Japan, again, and the Fed, we're going to get some movement out of here. It's still got some heavy lifting to do, but it came down to that 50 to 62.5. We got the strong rotation back up. The key area on the bounce now, if it's going to maintain in bull mode, the real key area in the short term is this 103.30 area. 103.30, and then it's got to follow through with a close above 103.60. Other than that, if it can't get a close above 103.60, and I'm talking this week, if it breaks the upside, we'll be watching for the next rollover play. Crude. This is a horizontal channel, not a double. You might be wondering here if it's a double. No, it's a horizontal channel. And we have separation with the rotation zone. Okay, so the key area I'm watching with crude is roughly about 80. Any pullback, 80 is the first level of key support. But remember, this has been basing higher. And we can still, 82.19 to now, the next target above there is about 83.25, 83.30. Also, remember, it's headed into some major resistance. You can see here, major resistance. So if you look at that major resistance area, and right under here, you can see that green line. You have a cluster. Would not be ignoring for at least a stop raise at 82.15 area. If it's going to keep following through, remember the rollover zone we're entering that rollover zone between the 50 and the 62 harmonic. So it's got in order to really keep rallying, we got to get that close above 84.80. So it's in bullish cautious mode. We're entering bullish cautious mode, which doesn't mean, we could get short-term topping things in there, but not, it's got to roll over big time before it really wipes out this rally. I'm going to be watching, though, for that follow through 84.80. Natty gas, not much to talk about. Gold, pull back to the rotation zone. We'll be watching to see, especially how today plays out, if it turns into a possible percent beat buy for tomorrow. Okay? With cycles getting the bottom, holding the upper end of the daily rotation zone. Nice little pullback so far. Nice little stair-stepping pullback. So I'm paying close attention to gold. Silver. Again, if silver is going to complete the 62.5 rule in the short term, 25.79. That's the next key target. Copper. We got a one-day pause on Thursday. A strong break. This is a really nice one-day pause rule after the breakout. One-day pause rule is where you get a strong breakout. Remember, close above the 62.5, you get a one-day pause, and then the next day a breakout above that high. Flip it for going down. It would be a break below the low. But a break above the high with the follow-through close, and the next target, 414. We've just connected there. What's the next target beyond there? 425. Then it starts getting real interesting. Now, your key support is back at that 404 area. So again, the 10-year yield, we're going to keep an eye on that with the Bank of Japan going into tonight. And here's the yen. The yen trading right at the 62.5. So this is going to get very interesting tonight. But more importantly, the euro, which triggered the double tops, come back to retest prior support becoming resistance. By the way, since it is against the rotation zone, see how it caught right in front of that first target on the rotation zone? From a learning perspective, this is where I would use the harmonics. And all right, it just barely missed it and it's against the rotation zone. I would lower the stop. So if you're doing your research on doubles, this would be the farthest away. The level that would invalidate this now for me is 109.40 on a closing basis, or a trade through 109.54. That would be my invalidation point based off the research I've done. Not saying that this has to bounce up here, but that's the farthest away I would personally have the stop levels. Now we'll be watching for the next rollover play, but keeping an eye and look at the bottom of the targets is right at the 200. The second target is roughly at the rising 50 exponential. The final target is at the flat 200 simple. Spiders coming down right to the bottom of the rotation zone on Friday, and now we're getting the bounce. I have the reverse harmonics. This confirmed a double top, but it did not trigger the double top. So the double top's been confirmed. Now we get a daily close back above 514.43, which could theoretically happen today or tomorrow. The double top is off the table. Right now, the key levels to pay attention to, back on a pullback, the first level would be 515.17, 511.91, and then the gap fill to Friday, 509.83. Those are the levels on the downside. To the upside, 514.43, 515.70, and 516.96. 515.95, 515.96 area is very, very key resistance. Not only because of the harmonic level, but look at the three top area there. The Qs. The Qs confirmed did not trigger the double. So now this is the Qs. See, it's back below the rotation zone. So the Qs are still in more neutral mode. Could shift a slightly more back into bullish mode, but based off here, the Qs are starting to roll over and break down. What's the key level? What's the key level we're watching for on the Qs? Let's flip around these harmonics. the key levels. What we're watching, we have major resistance right around this 438.75. You can see low, high, low. Just the close above there, and then the high on Friday. So that's 438.70 area. We're trading 438.50. So that's going to be the first area. The next area you should watch, from my perspective, again, everything's my perspective, 440.70. That's the 50% retracement. 442.68. Now that's the only thing that can get me really starting to look at a stronger bullish mode for tech and NASDAQ again. Need a close above 442.68. Other than there, I'm starting to watch more for neutral and potential more evenly buy and sell patterns. Okay? Because you see, this is really waning. But you get the close above that 442.68. Gonna be keeping a clear eye on that. I know it's opens. That's why I don't have time to go in the ADD right today. But Bitcoin, this could also be forming a major topping area. So if you've been bull on Bitcoin, I know where stops are to the downside. Not saying it has to run out yet, but this is getting into a major topping area and some major long-term topping plays. Okay? So I'd be watching potentially for a reconnection with the weekly rotation zone. So don't get surprised on that. Then we have Google. The big gap up today. I mean, this is really, so again, I'm just watching for, it's filling these gaps that's left behind. But this could be forming a significant double top. This could be forming a significant double top area. Not looking for today at all. There's a big gap that's first got to get filled. But from a longer term perspective, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this with Google. Whether you look at GOOG for Google, I know it's still Alphabet. I'm going to always call it a Google. Please, even if you don't trade it, keep an eye on that. Because you don't have to, you might not trade copper. But copper, as long as it keeps running, is inflationary. Apple, by the way, this gap up, there's still, we finally filled the gap with a gap. But I'm still going to be watching this channel. Now, if Apple continues and forms another topper on this 180 area, then I'd really be watching for another key rollover play. By the way, this bounce does nothing to invalidate the double. That can still play out. But these could be setting up, from my perspective, for next rollover plays. I hope people are still here, or I'm talking to myself. Here we go with the S&P. So already we've reconnected with the 75. So your first little level now is 52.25, but this looks like it could form into a stronger trend day. Remember, it's repositioning after quad witching. Would not get concerned unless you start getting key closes back below 52.19. If it continues on the rally, there's some minor resistance coming in around this 52.35 to 52.40, but the 52.45 is very key. On a tick basis, not an overly bullish open. However, unless you start seeing real big spikes below minus 600, this thing could still be in a pretty strong rally mode, and I'd be watching for spikes up towards 800 to 1,000. So at this point, I'd be on from my perspective, the bullish side with this strong momentum going up. It looks like it's a pretty buy, at least going into the open, and buy everything day. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ also. So the NASDAQ, remember, 18,350 area. What? NQ rejecting of 22s? I mean, don't get, this is minor. I mean, you have some minor resistance right here. 18.3, 312 to 320 areas. Yeah, it's rejected the 22s in the minor, but really I'd be focused on this very key 50% on that decline. That's going to be a very key level. So, all right, that's where we sit. Hope everybody has a wonderful day. By the way, on a pullback, once this starts, really pay attention to that 52.25 at the S&P. Thanks, Charles. Friday's high. All right, that's where we sit. Hope everyone has a wonderful trading day. Remember, Bank of Japan tonight and the Fed on Wednesday, and I shall talk to everyone later. Bye for now.